What up? It's your boy TC, IFBB Men's Physique Pro, coming at you with episode 4 in my series of men's physique tips and tricks. Now today we're in the studio at the beautiful Powerhouse Gym, West Palm Beach, Florida, my home away from home. You may also notice my attire, or lack thereof, is a little bit different today, and that's because in this episode we're going to cover posing and presentation tips. Presentation is absolutely essential in you achieving your highest possible placing at your show. Regardless of how well conditioned you are, how much you nailed everything that you wanted to do for the show, if you don't properly present that to the judges, you're just not going to achieve your expected results. So today we're going to start off talking a little bit about what the judges are looking for and some things you can do to help yourself out with that. We're also going to talk about the pace of your different poses, right? How quickly or how slowly you want to move from one pose to the next and why. And then also we're going to focus on the front pose, okay? And I'm going to detail you some things I do with my front pose that you may want to try out. It's that first pose that the judges see, so it's absolutely essential that you really nail that down. One other thing before we get started, cut your boy some slack on the conditioning. I'm in my off season, I'm a little soft, all right? With all that being said, let's get started with tip number 1. All right, so let's talk a little bit about judging and some things that you can do to help yourself get noticed, okay? Once you pick a show, what I recommend is that you look at the schedule of shows and see if there's another show 2 or 3 weeks before the one that you picked. A lot of times, especially if they're local in the same area, you're gonna have the same panel of judges at all of those shows, okay? Now, if that's the case, I would do that first show. Here's the reason why. If you do a show in front of a set of judges and you do well, they're gonna remember you at the next show, okay? You're gonna sort of, be the front runner in their minds. It happened to me at a show where I came in second. The guy that won had done another show just 2 weeks before in front of the same judges, and that was my first time in front of those judges. And he had won that show, okay? So it was very clear to me during comparisons, we were both on the ends, right, when we came out, and the very first move they made was to bring him right into the middle. So again, in their minds, they know what this guy's bringing. They know that he did very well just 2 weeks ago. So they know he's pretty much in the same condition, and they're gonna put him right there, and then you're gonna have to beat him out, okay? So you wanna be that guy. And you do that by doing well at a show just a few weeks before the one that you're really targeting. Now, that may not be an option, right? You may not have a show a couple weeks before the one you're doing. So another way to get yourself a little bit ahead is if your show has a posing seminar or a clinic as part of it. A lot of times it's the night before the show. And in those seminars, the judges are actually there. And they're looking at you and they're telling you what they're looking for and what they want to see. So that gives you an opportunity to get in front of those judges and again, do your best. I mean, if you can get your tan before the seminar, do that, right? You want to look really good. It's almost like a rehearsal for the show. And again, if you stand out, right, amongst the folks that are at that clinic, they're going to remember that, and it's the very next day, right? So that's going to get you, again, sort of a leg ahead on those other competitors. Don't worry about if you know how to pose, right? You're not there to learn how to pose. You're just there to get in front of the judges and find out what it is they're looking for. Find out if they like hands on the hips, right, or if they don't care. Find out if they like, you to really tighten your back or keep your back wide, right? Get all of that critique and then use it the next day. Whatever they tell you, do it, right? Because the last thing you want to do is do something different from what they told you, right? That's going to put a bad impression on them. So again, if you can attend a posing seminar the night before, even if you don't need to work on your posing, just do it so you can get in front of those judges. So they can have that familiarity with you as if you had done a prior show in front of them already. It's really going to help you out. Alright, so let's talk a little bit about the pace of your posing and how long you should spend in each pose. Alright, now here's the whole thing with that. When somebody's watching you pose, right, and especially the judges, the first thing they see is the strength in that pose, whatever it may be, right? Maybe you've got broad shoulders, maybe you've got a big back, maybe you have, ripped intercostals and a good core, whatever it may be, they see that first, okay? After about a second or two, that wears off, and then they start looking elsewhere, okay? And what they start looking for are your flaws, okay? And everybody's got them, right? I don't care how good your physique is, everybody's got flaws. So what your goal is to show them that strength of whatever pose it may be, and then to move on to the next one, not giving them enough time to pick you apart, okay? So what I usually do is I hold every pose for about 2 seconds, right? And then move on to the next one. If you watch any of the other pros posing, you'll see they move very quickly, right? And a lot of times they make just a subtle, little change in a pose, but they're moving very quickly from one to the next. And that's the reason for that. So let's assume you're hitting all 4 poses, right? Front, quarter, back, quarter, and then back to the front. Here's the pace that I usually take on that. So I come out, I hit my front pose, move on to my quarter, back pose, quarter, and then front pose. And I'm done, okay? Moving real quick, showing them my strengths, not letting them pick me apart. Your #1 goal, right, at your show should be to make first call-outs. And the way you do that is to make sure that you highlight your strengths and you don't let them pick you apart, okay? Now, once you make first call-outs and you're out there for comparisons, you're at their mercy, right? They're gonna tell you to face the front, and you're gonna have to stand there for as long as they want to compare everybody, all right? Face the rear, same thing. You're gonna have to stay there for as long as they want. But at that point, it's not in your hands. Before that, when you're doing your individual posing, it's absolutely in your hands, and you need to take advantage of that. So again, move quickly, show your strength, and then move right along to the next pose. All right, so let's talk a little bit about your front pose, right? Probably the most important pose out of all 4. Why? Because it's the first one that judges get to see. It's your first impression to them, and probably what they're gonna remember for the rest of your routine, okay? Now, you see a lot of guys doing a lot of different things here. A lot of guys just stand straight on, right, and flat-footed, okay? Honestly, I don't think that looks good on anybody. I don't care how good your physique is. I don't care how small your waist is. It could always be better, okay, than you standing dead on. So what I recommend is a little bit of footwork, right? A little bit of dynamics from your waist down. Try a couple different things. Try putting your sort of back leg out, right, and twist around. You can try what I do, which is to make my left leg sort of as a front leg and kind of kick it out, right? You still want to make sure you twist your torso all the way around so you're flat, right? I mean, it's a front pose, right? It's not a quarter. So you got to come all the way around. But what you can see that does is it helps tighten me up in the core, which is one of my strengths. It also makes me look pretty broad because it adds to the illusion that my waist is even smaller than it really is, okay? Because of the twist of my torso. My waist is 29 inches, right? It's pretty small. I don't care. I want to make it look even smaller, okay? And that little twist adds to that illusion, okay? So give that a shot, play around with some footwork, but again, try to stay away from the dead-on flat, sort of front pose. In my opinion, it can always be better with a little bit of dynamics from the waist down, okay? Another thing, if you have long arms, like I do, right? I mean, these things are pretty long. You don't want to let them just hang, okay, when you do a pose, right? Notice the position of my arms right now. What you can do is bring them up a little bit, okay? Just subtle, right? Not all the way up here, I saw a guy in the show last weekend that I went and watched, who's sitting there going like this, right? That looks ridiculous, okay? That's not what I'm talking about. It's just a little subtle bend of your elbows, right, to bring your lower arms up, and then it also causes your shoulders to kind of come up a little bit, okay? Now, notice what that does. It makes everything in my upper body look bigger, okay? My arms look bigger, my shoulders pop, right? My chest gets fuller. Everything kind of comes up when I do that, okay? And it's just a subtle little move. So again, instead of just letting them hang, right, bring them up here, okay? It's gonna add to your width, again, making everything else look smaller and giving you that V, right, that you want in men's physique, okay? So bring the arms up a little bit. Last point here your hands, okay? I had a judge give me some critique after a show one time and said, I can see your hands too much, okay? I'm not looking for your hands, you know? So again, you know, depending on what you're doing, if you have your hand on your waist, if you've got a hand out here, you've got them both out here, it doesn't matter. I like to keep my hands kind of clenched, okay? And then keep my thumbs kind of tucked in like that, okay? And that's regardless of what pose I'm doing. So even if I'm putting my hand on my hip, I'm leaving my hand like that. And of course my other one's gonna be that way as well, okay? That minimizes that distraction of the fingers, okay? You don't want to distract them. You want them to see your physique, okay? So keep your hands closed, clenched, tucked in, right? Arms a little bit up and a little bit of twist in that front pose. So work on all those things, get in front of a mirror. You know, like I said in an earlier episode, 15 minutes, 20 minutes a day posing. This is where you get to see all those little details and you get to see exactly what is gonna nail that pose for you, okay? So try these little subtle moves. Again, you want something dynamic, okay? You don't want to look like everybody else, you know, just standing up there flat, right? It doesn't look good. There's always better. So give that a shot and see if it works out for you. All right, well that's going to do it for episode 4 in a series of men's physique tips and tricks with your boy TC, IFBB Men's Physique Pro. Hopefully you got some good information out of today's episode regarding posing and presentation. I can't stress enough how important it is for you to nail your presentation in order to achieve the highest possible placing at your show. If you haven't already done so, please follow the channel. That way you can stay up to date as new videos are released. And also please follow me on the various social media outlets listed below so you can stay up to date with what I'm doing to prepare to compete professionally in 2015. So until next time, stay swole and leave it all in the gym each and every time.